Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about a war between neighbors that ended not in favor of the villain. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbor tried to exploit HOA loophole. Another neighbor was more clever. In an old neighborhood with narrow streets, the HOA didn't allow parking on the street overnight. A neighbor put his boat on a trailer out there and then took off the wheels. Somewhere in the bylaws, the word parked was defined as something with wheels. He found it and decided to test it, and couldn't understand why everyone thought he was a jerk. His boat blocked half the street and was an eyesore. His wife was embarrassed and begged him to move it. He just smirked at everyone and thought he was clever. It sat there for weeks. Finally, another neighbor bought used trailer wheels off Craigslist and put them on the trailer while the other guy was at work. By the time he got home, his boat was towed. He never brought it back. I always felt bad for his wife. And our second story. Testing the fire alarm and testing me. Going back about 16 years, I worked in an entry-level admin job which included taking phone calls from people wanting repairs to their social housing. Lots of angry people calling. Being the helpful young chap I was, I also volunteered to test the fire alarm in the building with a couple of other colleagues. This was done at 9 a.m. every Monday morning. One morning I'd had a particularly obnoxious caller and didn't get off the phone until about 9:15 a.m. Straight after, I made my way to the alarm panel at the other end of the building, and we did the test. No issues. Or so I thought. A few hours later, my manager calls me to go see her. She's fairly new. Turns out she wants to point out the importance of doing the alarm on time, I shouldn't be late doing it, and that I should organize my time better, etc. I tell her the best option is if I stop doing the test, since I can't guarantee I'm always free at 9 a.m. For example, if someone calls at 8:40 a.m. and chews my ear off for 30 minutes, I'm definitely not going to put them on hold and piss them off more. Manager says I should stop spitting my dummy out and being sulky and petulant. I agreed that I would carry out the tests at 9 a.m. sharp in the future. Next few weeks pass and the manager's getting complaints from callers that either they get cut off or inexplicably put on hold. She notices this happens around 9 a.m. on Mondays, and the complaints all relate to calls involving me. Yep, I was either just cutting callers off completely or putting them on hold for however long it took to make sure that the alarm was done at 9 a.m. Any callers wanting to speak to my manager? But of course, sir, madam, here are her contact details. Needless to say, I stopped having to do the alarm and my manager had to do it instead as nobody else was able to. Manager and I continued to work for the same employer, although I went off in a different team. We bumped into one another on training courses, etc. for some time, and she was always frosty. Had a reputation for it by that time. Until recently when she was laid off, and I did not find it hilarious at all. And our last story. Harass me? Treat me like crap? That's going to cost you 5 years' salary. First, some background. A bit over 6 months prior to the start of this story, we had a change-up at the company I worked for. The old owner was a great guy and was retiring and handing the company off to his son, a real POS just out of business school type. The son, with the mentality that the company is now his, went about restructuring, namely reassigning teams to different projects and leaving those that remained in their old positions to pick up double, if not triple, the workload. He did this all in the name of saving a little money. Unfortunately, my department, safety/engineering, of which I was the team lead, was not spared from this effort. In the end, I had it out with the boss and department head, ultimately costing the company 3 months of my entire department working 80-plus hour weeks and forcing a huge year-end bonus to be paid out to us. Unfortunately, after my initial meeting with the new boss, i.e. the son, he took a liking to me. In a really bad way. Essentially, he really liked me and wanted to go out with me or sleep with me or however you want to put it. He even enlisted his friends and secretaries to help him. It went on for months, just blatant sexual harassment. They even made comments about me losing my late husband, that I should just get back on the horse, so to speak. I kept everything, every email, every voicemail, and went to my best friend who happens to be a really good lawyer, a contract lawyer to be exact, so not exactly their area of expertise, but they knew enough to help. The friend drafted a letter to the boss, essentially a stop or we're going to start a big case over this kind of thing. And yeah, everything stopped. However, I was then moved from working in office to a work-from-home arrangement. I knew what was coming. They were going to do their best to get rid of me, so I started documenting everything. But as luck would happen, I received an email chain from the bosses. A good friend of mine in the office who was in the email chain added me to the CC list, and wouldn't you know it, it was back and forth communication of them discussing how they would get rid of me and pin the blame on me. The email chain was just disgusting. They hated me so badly and wanted me gone, but because of my contract, they would have to buy me out. But being the cheapskates they are, you know they wanted me gone for free. So the company bosses started a campaign to try and torment me. They first tried to say that because now I work from home, they were required to install cameras in my home office to make sure I was being productive. Luckily, that didn't work. You have to love contracts. They also tried assigning an impossible workload on me, but luckily my team and I were almost like family, and they picked up the slack. After 3 months of this crap, I get an email and a phone call from the HR department saying I was getting laid off indefinitely because there was just no work for me. This was complete bullcrap given that we had several dozen projects we were working on. On a side note, in Ontario, there's no such thing as a layoff, as in the court's eyes, being laid off is considered an active dismissal, which is essentially the same as being fired. After this conversation with HR, I call my lawyer friend almost in tears, just shouting, "Look what they're doing to me! Help!" She calms me down and tells me, "This is such a good thing. We have so much evidence against them." I had already forwarded and printed everything off that was sent to me, and it was lucky I did because a scant few hours after I was laid off, my computer was remotely wiped clean. Everything was gone, leaving just a blank desktop. When I called the HR department to get copies of all my filed complaints, what do you know? Everything was gone. In their place was a bunch of bullcrap reprimands that never happened, that I never signed or saw, dating months and months back, and all signed by the new boss, despite the fact that they were dated before he ever even took control of the company. It was clear they were total bullcrap, but I got copies of everything to add to my stack of records. I texted all my old colleagues and let them know what was happening, and that I'm basically gone. Like I said earlier, we were like family, and with me on the way out, they started looking for better employment. Not only that, but they contacted all their friends who worked for the company to do the same. I was laid off on a Monday, and on Thursday, I walked into the office with my employment lawyer. I swear, the main secretary was on the phone to security the second she saw me walk in, and they were at the door in the matter of a minute. My lawyer simply handed her a legal document, a summons to meet for mediation at his office the next Friday. During the following week, I received so many calls and text messages from the bosses, friends, secretaries, and people I knew at the office to just be friendly with the owner, to just drop it, and that they wanted to bring me back and forget about everything. Like hell I was going back to such a hostile work environment. Friday finally comes, and into my lawyer's office, my former boss walks in with a squad of 4 of his lawyers to settle the matter. And off the bat, he offers me 3 months severance to end all of this because I didn't have any evidence to rebut the fake paperwork they had on file. At this point, my lawyer starts to bring out all the paperwork we had, namely copies of every complaint I'd ever filed, which were all signed by the bosses, HR, and myself. Luckily for our case, I'd made sure to take a copy of each complaint when it was written up. They didn't think I had anything? Oh boy, were they wrong. My lawyer made the case that in court it'd be obvious that all the paperwork they had on their end were forgeries. Nothing was signed by me, and he pointed out that there were dates with the boss's signature where he wasn't in the country, let alone working for the company yet. At that point, the boss and his lawyers went to speak privately. After about a half an hour, they came back with a much better offer, a full year's salary. But my lawyer was like, "Nah, we'll just go with what the contract says, plus go for damages in court." Given the recent changeover at the company, the lawyers seemed to know they couldn't afford this going to court, not to mention it would be so bad for the company's reputation, so they basically rolled over and asked, "What do you want?" We demanded 5 years' salary plus the average bonus I would have made for each year, plus all the legal fees paid. It was a big, big win, but it didn't end there. I got a taste of blood and wanted more. I made phone calls to several companies where I had contacts and found jobs for every member of my team and several members of other teams. By the end of the week, the company lost 10 of its most talented people, Not to mention, most of those people had friends and colleagues that ended up following them to their new employers. The fallout was pretty bad. Before all of this, they had the pick of the litter when new university students graduated, but now, because they lost almost all of their senior people, they had no one to mentor new employees. Plus, word got out fast how they treat workers like crap, so no one with any talent would even think of getting near the company. As of today, the company is just a shell of its former self. It's still big, but it bleeds money. They also now have a problem with permanent staffing and are paying out the nose to hire subcontractors. Let's just say they don't make money like they used to. In fact, they've not started any new projects in something like 9 months. If something isn't done on the side of management to improve things fast, they'll likely be going bankrupt in the very near future. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.